Thanks for coming, Joan.
Economy. I think at Sydney University. I went up 1947, I think it was, or 46. I can't even remember. To do law. And the women's advice said, oh no dear, I wouldn't advise you to do law, you'll never get employed, you know. Women don't get employed. And I thought, well, she's employed by the union, she must know her business. I came from a family that had no lawyers in it or anything. So I did arts teaching instead. I suppose the consequences of that is that I might have been doing, if I hadn't taken her advice, I might be doing conveyancing, or might have done conveyancing the miseries of divorce and wills in the suburbs. As it is, it made me into a feminist. When I found out later on that teachers, women teachers got, what was it, 65% of the salary. And that, so, you know, I was on my way. And I suppose I became a feminist also around that time by reading, because there was a lot of literature coming out about the socio-economic status of women. And I was doing economics, and to ignore one half of the population's intelligence and skills in a small population like Australia struck me as crazy. But it was, you know, it was sanctioned by religion and sanctioned by law. And I thought we had to do something about it. When I was at the university, I suppose I was making trouble. I can't remember much except the Communist Party tried to recruit me. I said to them I'd brought up Catholic and I wasn't going to adopt another orthodoxy. When I left university, of course, there was the equal pay issue in the 50s. And, you know, you paid your fees to the Teachers' Federation, but they only looked after the blokes. Women teachers had to go and do the agitating for their equal rights. On filthy wet days, I used to go into the staff room and say to the blokes, I'm not going out on the playground to do playground duty. You go and earn your 25% or your 30%. And some of them were tame enough to do it. Brett, he used to ring me up and complain. I said, why don't you do something about it? He said, why don't you? I said, well, the community doesn't know anything about it. You've got to, I mean, the people who were in the system take their wages and do bugger all about it. That's what I loved about the Teachers' Federation. They were always activists. That's why the governments hate them. And the same all over the world, teachers are, governments who employ them hate them. But the public service and the prison officers and the lawyers who work in the system and the lawyers who work in the justice all take their wages, but most of them don't do anything to reform the system. Unless they get elected to Parliament, and then they toughen up the laws and run the law and order campaign. And so it struck me as, again, as stupid in a society that criminalises young people and gives them a record that puts them outside the society probably for the rest of their days, confirms them in their criminality almost. And that's what I suppose. I didn't analyse my motivation, I'm always one of those people who say, God, we better do something about it. The women prisoners are particularly sad because of the majority of them are victims of the society as it is now. Education in prison is a necessity towards rehabilitation. And education in the broader sense of the word, it doesn't only mean skills, it means social education, literacy, numeracy, anything that the person doesn't have when they enter the prison system. A lot of them don't have any social skills, etc., etc. But it's also a measure of the failure of the school system. Not to they've raised the school leaving age to 18, but they haven't set up any programs, as far as I know, in the schools to take the reluctant students and give them a program which interests them. But when I was teaching, you know, if anything happened in my class, I'd stop, we'd forget about geography and talk about that incident, what it meant socially, or if somebody was doing bullying, we'd analyse that, and so on and so forth. I'm against it because if the state backs you up, they have the responsibility to care for you during that time. I think it's as simple as that. And the state can't pass off its responsibilities to private citizens for profit. I think it's, you know, it's letting them off the hook. And it's closing the door to public scrutiny. I think it's disastrous. I think it's urgent. I mean, other prison systems have it. And I mean, online education, I should talk about it on the computer idiot, but it means that people A, have something to do, B, they have something that interests them, they chose it themselves, and it's secure in other prisons. There's no reason not to have it, except bull-headed prejudice, I would say, and lack of imagination on the part of the people who make decisions. I've always felt that you could achieve more outside politics than you can in by being an agitator or activist or whatever you like to call it. And I wonder why we're like this. Unsatisfied people who want to change things. But if there's something wrong, I automatically have an urge to, or if I have the information, to give someone the information for them to do it. I don't do it myself. I believe in sort of energising people or showing them the path, and that I think is what education in prison is, showing them a path. And that's, I'm not given to introspection very much. I just go on doing what I do. Techniques you develop in at any level of political skills you deliver
Yes.
Are transferable to almost anything. A, you've got to have your facts.
Yes.
B, you've got to learn public speaking.
Yes.
3, you've got to learn to be persuasive. This is not a revolutionary country. This is, I believe in reform, inch by inch, day by day, hour by hour, bit by bit. You never can get huge social changes. You've got to hammer on the doors for years. You've got to persuade. You've got to have your facts. And that's why having the statistics on prisons, levels of education, levels of mental illness, levels of how many are women, what percentage, all these are critical to your understanding of the issue and presenting the issue. I mean, the women's movement's 300 years old and it's not successful yet. I mean, the middle class of women have benefited much more than lower socio-economic women.
Yeah,
the message didn't get out in lots of places.
So
they're still being beaten up, and they're still being undereducated in lots of cases, and being ruled by church and all that sort of stuff. So you have to, numbers are valuable, but strategy is just as valuable, or more so, I think. Think a well thought out strategy, look for the weak points, look for something they should be ashamed of, look at what their public aims and objects are and where they fail to meet them. You know, your party makes itself out to be a party of reform and this and that and the other, yet have you ever looked at this issue? And why aren't you looking at this issue? Or how is it that this came about? The embarrassing question to which there's only an embarrassing answer. I think it's satisfying to think that you made a difference somewhere along the line.